Confucius, or in Chinese, Kongzi, was a philosopher who lived during the tail end of the Zhou dynasty, what's often referred to as the spring and autumn period. This is around 550 BC to 470 BC. Now, Confucius was an idealistic politician and also a philosopher, a thought leader of his time, who was born into one of the higher social classes, the gentry scholars, or the educated elite. So he should have been pretty well off financially in terms of material security, except his father died when he was young. So that left him to be raised by a single mother. Therefore, he actually grew up in poverty. And I think that dynamic of being from a relatively high-ranking social class or lineage and having education, but having no money and being sort of the poor end of that social class, I think that tension is going to help shape Confucius into who he became and the fuel for much of his own political ambitions. So there are religious elements to Confucianism. For example, Confucius believed in a monotheistic God principle, Sangdi, and that there was a heaven, Tianli, and that through spiritual cultivation, comporting ourselves morally in a specific code, which was a code that Confucius had outlined, we can become one with God and ascend from the earthly realm to the heavenly realm. What's heaven, though? So this is interesting. This monotheistic God principle is a creation God because heaven created earth, created mankind. Each one of us was created by this God, Tianli. However, Confucius also referred to heaven as the Tao. So now we bring in sort of Taoist principles. Tao is also nature. It's the force of nature. It's the universe. It's what's best described in modern society as the collective unconscious, using psychological terminology. So heaven is both a creation God and a collective consciousness, a network that unites all of us as one. So today, scholars often describe Confucianism as pantheistic. Then in this nature, according to Confucian cosmology, there are many gods or nature spirits. So a mountain has a spirit, a tree has a spirit, and there are many unseen levels or realms of spirits, lighter realms that are benevolent and darker or lower vibrational realms of malevolent or negative spirits. Malevolent is a better word. Malefic is better than negative. Malefic spirits or trickster spirits, sort of playful types. Anyway, Confucius believed that rituals, offerings, and altars set up to honor these spirits, both the higher and the lower, and many gods around us, keep us in harmony with the spirit realm. So religious rituals, liturgy, leaving out food and offerings to the spirits around us, the land spirits, the spirit of a mountain that's close by, the spirit of a large major tree near your village, all of this and constructing altars and temples to honor our local spirits are considered important features of Confucius observation. Ultimately, the objective, according to Confucius, is to become one with heaven, with God. Now, how do you do that? So Confucius set forth very stringent ethical principles that needed to be adhered to for spiritual cultivation. These ethical principles included being benevolent, generous, educating yourself so you're knowledgeable. Education was considered a virtue, showing unconditional loyalty. Loyalty was another very big ethical principle as well. And of course, the one that Confucianism is most known for, it's filial piety. Okay, what's filial piety? Well, society at every level, every pair, every two people coming together, so every binary relationship consists of a superior and an inferior. So in any relationship, at any time, any two people who come together, anytime there's two people, they're never going to be equal, according to Confucius. Any two people coming together, one will absolutely be superior, one will absolutely be inferior, again, according to Confucius. So in every binary, every time there's sort of two and a power of two or party of two coming together, you have this absolute superior, this absolute inferior. And then these, whichever role you play, you have absolute unconditional principles you have to follow. Now, the superior is required to be righteous, to show integrity, to lead, to be a leader, to be responsible, and to emanate with light, with knowledgeable, and all these, all things good. The inferior needs to be submissive and must follow without question, must be quiet unless spoken to, and to be meek when in the presence of one who is superior. And just so we're clear, this Confucian code of filial piety left women on the lowest rung of the totem pole, if you know what I mean, which ultimately resulted in the widespread social abuse of women. For example, while knowledge was considered, as I had talked about earlier, a virtue for a man, knowledge was not a virtue for a woman, because knowledge in a woman risked the women getting fancy ideas of superiority, and much of the trouble in society, in the society of men, according to Confucius, true story, is instigated by a woman who knows too much. So, knowledge and education in a woman is bad. It's really bad for society. Also, if a woman did not produce a male heir, then automatically she has broken the rules of filial piety, and she's basically a piece of shit. If you're a female and you don't produce a male heir, yeah, you're a piece of shit, at least according to Confucianism 101. Confucius proposed that if everyone just fell in line and adhered to this principle of inferior and superior relations and knew their place, then society would be perfectly harmonious. Now, let's talk about his political philosophy. So, to ensure this perfectly harmonious society of perfect yin and perfect yang, inferior and superior relationships, there must be an exhaustive, copious, and strict body of laws that govern our society. And if you break a law, the punishment should be severe. He was a big proponent as well of the mandate of heaven. 君子, a term you see throughout the I Ching, which I've translated into English as the sage, even though that's not a literal translation. I acknowledge it's a wrong translation. I get to that in some of the supplemental materials and explain exactly why I intentionally went with the translation the sage as opposed to some of the others that are more literal or direct translations. Anyway, so this idea of a 君子 is a key concept in Confucianism. Now, more commonly translated, 君子 is gentleman, and it's very specific in terms of man, male. It is not a female at all. It's absolutely a man, implying the perfect gentleman, the ideal man. It's kind of like the concept of your higher self. So you aspire to be a 君子. Well, men do, according to Confucius. Women, not so much. Women, we don't really care about you. Women, just stay home, keep your head down, listen to your fathers, brothers, husbands, or sons, and produce male heirs. Okay, back to men. So men must all aspire to be 君子, to manifest their higher selves. At many turns of the text in the I Ching, you have passages about how to be a 君子, what's proper for a 君子, and what's not proper for a 君子, and how you need to be a 君子 to ultimately cultivate your spirituality to a level of becoming one with heaven or one with God. So that was Confucianism 101, brought to you as a supplemental guide, just in case you felt like it's something you wanted to help supplement or to help round out your understanding and your reading of the I Ching.